So we'll call this public hearing for the fiscal year ending 2021 tax year and fiscal year ending 2022 tax year budget. We'll have a brief report from Lamar, and then anyone who would like to make comments or ask questions, then come up to the podium, name and address, and then proceed with your questions.
Well, Kimber's not here, so I don't feel rushed tonight, so that's a good feeling. I'll just touch on the highlights, and then if there's anything specific you'd like me to get into, I'd be happy to. When we had the workshop a couple weeks back, I gave you a budget that basically had no extraordinary items. So that way you can compare a true year-on-year change. Why I did that? We're building the fire station. We don't issue $9 million of bonds every year. So in this upcoming budget, with those projections, we're looking to spend another $4.2 million to finish the construction on the fire station in this upcoming budget. So to try to show you an apples to apples, I removed the $4.2 million and I showed you what the year-on-year change is. Generally speaking, the general fund is balanced. It's last year our budget was $11,052,000 odd. This year we're looking at, other than the fire station, $11,467,000 odd. Add into that another 4.285 for the fire station. That's going to bring up the general fund budget to $15,753,000 odd. So again, that $4 million is a one-time expenditure, so it kind of muddies the water. I wanted y'all to see what year-on-year changes we're talking about, and then this one-time extraordinary expenditure. With that thought in mind, I'll go through the different funds. Solid waste is, last year was $1,725,000 odd. This upcoming year, we're requesting $1.721 million, so a little bit less. But systems, we just received $1.9 million in our bank account thanks to the fire chief back there, who should get some kudos for that. But just don't let them hear me say that. But that being said, system year on year, that's the water sewer systems. Last year was $5.252 million. This year is $5.385 million, with the exception of the $1.9 million we received from the Corona Relief Fund, CLFRF. And those are the funds that will be dedicated to the wastewater system. We're going through lining out those projects, and that's not going to start till the new fiscal year. So the total new systems budget is $7,303,000. That's with the additional $1.9 million. A little more detail about that. The $1.9 million that we received is the first of two tranches, that's their language, payment that we're going to get. So two $1.9 million payments from the federal government to improve our water and sewer system. Basically, it's pretty much going to be looked at for our sewer system. The second tranche, we're not sure when that's going to be coming in, probably next year about this time, maybe a little bit later. We weren't expecting it to come so quickly this year. But long story short, all work has to be started with those monies by 2024 and has to be completed by has to be started by December 31st, 2024, and has to be all expended by December 31st, 2026. So that's the timeline we're looking at for this extra money. But again, we don't get those kind of windfalls every year, so I wanted to make sure council saw a year-on-year.
Were those monies applied for?
You want to take a ballot, Lance?
It's a national grant that was distributed to Texas, and Texas you have so much allotted per capita, per community, and you had to actually apply for it and accept it, or you could deny it, but we accepted it, is what we get. It's a total of about $3.8 million is what we're getting. And the first part is 1.9.
You had pursued that?
Yes, sir. It's in the bank account.
Yeah, good job.
Is there any repayment plan? This is free and clear.
No match.
No match, nothing.
Kudos, GPO.
I had help from Lamar on that one.
Lance did all the heavy lifting, he gets the credit for that.
That's all like the other sewer projects that we had.
Wastewater lines, wastewater plant is, and
So we ought to be,
apparently the hit street as well is being considered for all these.
so we ought to be, from the past grants and stuff, we ought to be getting pretty good,
I think our water system, water lines are really in good shape, and this is going to help us tremendously with our
we should be,
sewer lines.
we already
And our
get
sewer
pretty
close.
close. 'Cause I know we didn't have that much left, as far as water lines, and we've been working on them for,
It'll put a
12,
considerable
14
dent
years.
on what we have, but we have a whole list of priority targets that we'll be working on later this week, actually.
maybe it'll finish, help us get closer.
But that being said, again, the 1.9 million is not an every year occurrence. So I wanted to make sure council sees a true year on year and then a one-time kind of windfall that we'll deal with as well. So,
Would you get Lance to do that more often?
well, Lance could step up his game a little bit, I guess, yes. That'd be a welcome windfall every year. Other highlights, this budget includes a 4% COLA for all employees, cost of living. There were some questions during the workshop, and so I just want to be clear. The net incremental increase to the budget is $124,670 across general fund, solid waste, and systems for this 4%. Now I'm going to confuse you. 1%, if we went to 5%, would be an additional $76,000 across all funds. The reason you're not seeing that on the first 4% is we had some a lot of retirements of senior employees who were at the top of their range, and now we have some younger folks coming in not at the top of their range, so it created a little bit of a drop on required costs for those guys. So that was able to cushion the hit on this 4%. Sales tax, we're budgeting 2.3 million total at sales tax and EDC. 1.5 will be for sales tax and 767 for EDC. That part of that is going to be earmarked for the debt payment for the fire station, which will be $579,000. But the discussion in the council meeting just before this was mentioned that the EDC could pick up some of the cost. The EDC has approximately $1 million in its fund balance right now. So it can absorb that hit. And so the budget, after the discussion and then the vote, will amend the EDC budget, and I'll get that out to you quickly, to show you that additional cost coming out of the EDC budget. But as far as do we have the reserves and the monies to pay for it, the answer is yes, we do. Let's see. INS, the debt service fund, the total debt service is $1,146,000. Of that, $579,000 is going to come from the EDC to pay the fire station. At least $567 odd million for the tax rate to cover the cost on those three bond issues. The tax rate. This is a little confusion. We talked confusing. We talked about that in the workshop a little bit. But the new tax rate is proposed 66.3422 cents. Last year's tax rate was 74.9185 cents. So that's a 8.576 cent drop. Now the reason that's a drop is because the appraisal values for most of these cities, for the appraisal district raised the values for the property values higher. So to keep the revenue neutral, they dropped it down. The tax rate has to drop down to commensurate to balance out. Now within that, there is a 1 cent increase over the no new revenue rate, which we discussed at the workshop, if y'all recall, but I'll be happy to talk about that again if you'd like. The new revenue was 65 odd cents, but we're asking for a penny higher, which is 66.3422 cents, but it's still under the voter approval required rate. Also, in this budget, we're requesting a 15-cent increase on the water and sewer cost per thousand. The water and sewer has had its financial troubles over the years, and this is just to try to keep that fund solid or in the black, if you will. It's struggling to be self-supporting.
Do you have an average cost that you'll see on the bill?
Assuming a 5,000 gallon,
Wasn't it $1?
I'm sorry,
Wasn't it $1? The
Approximately, yes,
Appro-
approximately.
approximately, yes, ma'am.
If you've got a 5,000 gallon bill, the first 2,000 gallons are somewhat covered under the, so you're looking at three times a 30, 90 cents to $1.10.
There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, about 8 vehicles requested in this budget. 2 police units, a fire truck, and the rest will be more or less animal control and public works types vehicles. It also had the caveat for the garbage truck, which we were going to take half the payment for the new garbage truck, stick it in the equipment reserve fund, and then in the next budget, we'll take the other half out of that budget, combine the two, and hopefully pay for the new garbage truck when it arrives, due to some lag in getting those orders processed by the manufacturer.
We haven't already ordered the truck, right?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
I think,
We'll have a number locked in for that.
no, sir, we do not.
The estimate is still at, was it?
It's under the state contract, so that's not going to change probably until, well, it could change anytime. Let me be full upfront about that. But it probably won't change until the new year. When we receive it, it's a whole different
If the
issue.
budget is approved, we will order the truck. Just the sooner the better to lock it in and make sure it gets here within a year, or make sure it gets here by, with a little bit after a year. So
After October 1st, 2022.
Correct.
And that's a quick overview. If there's anything more specific, I'll be happy to go over it with you.
Okay. Thank you. Mark, any close?
Yes, sir.
Do you have a page or a sheet that shows the difference?
I can create one and get it to you in the morning. That won't be a problem.
That would be very nice
Sure.
of you. Thank you.
At this time, we'll open the floor to any public comments or questions.
So I'm a little confused. My name's Barbara Eddington, 3800 Russell Groves. Is this a tax hearing and a budget hearing, or is it just the budget hearing? Because I want to know if it's appropriate for me to talk about the tax increase right
You're
now.
welcome to talk about the tax
Okay.
increase. It's part of the
Yeah, yeah, it's part of the budget and it affects the budget. So,
Okay, I just
yes.
want to make sure I was here at the right time. Many incomes cannot support the tax increase. People have lost work, businesses have lost customers. I believe the city should use every opportunity to lessen the burden on the citizens. We as taxpayers always look for ways to cut back on expenses. I would expect the city to do the same. It's as if the city is just waiting for long-term employees to retire in order to have extra money to pay for expenses. Every budget for the last 12 years is prefaced with the statement, and I have them right here, it's important to remember that our resources are limited and tax rates, utility rates, and sales rate tax rebates have their limits. The city will be making deliberate efforts in the coming fiscal year to reduce and restructure the workforce where practical. Now, let me be clear. I am completely in support of compensating employees fairly, but this is beyond that. It's time for the city to take a different approach, stop raising taxes and utilities. We have our limits too. We've raised taxes 6 times in the last 8 years. That's all I have.
Suzanne Williamson, 5301 Kent Avenue. Do you guys have a copy of the budget hearing notice? No? I'd like to see it. I have never seen one. I brought this, a packet of information I wanted to share with you based on what I'm about to talk about.
Mrs. Williamson?
Yes.
Could you speak in the microphone, please?
Oh, sure. Is that good? It's kind of hard.
It's not coming down.
How about that?
Okay, just as close to it as you can so we can all
Okay.
hear.
Okay, tonight I'm here to talk about the tax hearing and the proposed budget. This hearing should not be happening tonight based on what I'm about to explain under the Texas Constitution and the law. I have provided documentation for you for every Texas Constitution article, state law, and the city charter that I'm referring to. That's the first thing in your packet. The Texas Constitution, Article 8, Section 21, sets out the general requirements for truth in taxation. Tax Code Chapter 26 then provides those specific prescribed laws that the Texas Constitution established. On August 16, 2021, Council was advised by the Finance Director, under the direction of the City Manager, who is the Budget Officer, on public hearing dates for budget and for tax according to the City Council agenda. The Council voted to approve those dates of August 30th and September 13th. However, the only two public hearings the public has been advised of are tax hearings. No notice of a budget hearing has been properly given as is required under the law. There should be two separate public hearings, one for proposed budget and one for the tax rate increase. There are also issues with the proposed budget under the Local Government Code, Chapter 102. To more easily understand these points, I've attached a calendar underneath those laws, calendar of August. Only one tax hearing is required under Tax Code Section 26.05D, and the tax levy rate increase must be adopted no later than 7 days after the hearing under Tax Code Section 26.06E. That is impossible to do with two tax hearings set. Please see the flyer from the Texas Comptroller's website that I provided that backs up what I just stated, that it has to be within 7 days. As well as the tax increase public notices that were posted by the City of Groves on their front door in the newspaper. There was an original one that was not correct, and then there was a revised one that was corrected. Texas Tax Code 26.6 says the City Council may vote on the proposed tax rate at the public hearing, at the tax hearing. And that meeting may not be held later than the 7th day after the date of the public hearing. Point number 2, even if one tax hearing had been set as is required, citizens were not lawfully notified of today's hearing in the Port Arthur News on August 21st, due to it's incomplete. Under the law, there is a certain section that's required to be completed, and that's under Tax Code 26.062. Okay, I lost my place. Okay, so you have to notify the public within 5 days of this hearing. You guys have got the email where I let Mr. Sosa and Lamar Osley know that what was posted on the website was incomplete, and they fixed it. Okay, that's fine. They reposted it on the website on August the 24th. But the tax code states it has to be on the website 7 days before the hearing, which they did meet that deadline with the revised form that I pointed out to them. However, the revised tax hearing notice didn't run in the newspaper until August the 28th. The revised one is here. It ran on August the 28th, which is 3 days before this August 30th meeting. That's not in the law. Texas Tax Code 26.06, the public hearing may not be held before the 5th day after the date of the notice of the public hearing is given. Texas Tax Code 26.06C, if the notice is published in the newspaper, the city must also post the notice prominently on the homepage, and that was done correctly. But that notice is required to have Form 26.062. That's the second page of your notice. It tells you exactly the nominal amount and the percentage amount of increase to people's taxes. The two items I've just talked about were under Tax Code Section 26. Those things support the Texas Constitution, Article 8, Section 21. Moving on to the Texas Local Government Code, Chapter 102 on municipal budgets. Proposed budget must have a cover page with specific language and specific font size when the proposed budget requires raising more revenue from property taxes than the prior year, as Groves is proposing to do. Also, the proposed budget is required to be posted on the city website. I have included an example for you in the information I gave you of the proper cover page that is required in the proposed budget with the exact language and font size. The proposed budget sent to me by the budget officer, who is the city manager under Section 102.001B, did not contain the required cover page, nor is the proposed budget posted on the city website. After it is filed with the city secretary, the proposed budget must be made available for inspection by any person, and if a city maintains a website, the proposed budget must be posted on the website. That's under Section 102.005C. When a proposed budget is filed with the municipal clerk, that will require raising more revenue. There's a specific form that I have the example, and that's in Section 102.005B. Point number 4. The proposed budget requires its own public hearing before the date the governing body makes its tax levy. So since you're having this tax hearing that you advertise